Welcome to the Sabrina Marie Show. Guys, we have a new show here today. We have a special guest. Her name is Angel Bartlett. Angel Bartlett, I had deemed her as my new friend. Angel is a clinical licensed social worker. She is a therapist, a best-selling author, motivational speaker. She is also the CEO of Let It Go Agency and founder of Girl, I Got You, Inc. Welcome to the Sabrina Marie Show, Angel. I'm ecstatic that you're here today, and I can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well.
Well, you came from pretty far. You came all the way down here, so I know we're going to get into some things today, and I feel like, I'm going to talk to you like you're my girlfriend, because I feel like after reading your book, I know you a little bit more.
All right,
a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay, so Angel, tell me, were you born and raised in Richmond, Virginia?
I was not. So I was actually born in Newport News, Virginia, and that's essentially where I'm from, which is what most people know as the 757 Tidewater area.
Okay, okay. So that's where you were born at?
That's where I was born and pretty much raised.
Oh,
yes.
okay, okay. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Because I see that you're an author, a motivational speaker, you're a social worker, so you had to do some schooling and things like that of that nature to get there.
Yes.
Have you always been interested in social working?
So absolutely not.
Uh-oh.
So my childhood was extremely traumatic. So I grew up in foster care. From age 11, aging out at 21 years old. So pretty much from 11 to 21, I spent majority of my life incarcerated in juvenile detention in what some people know as the juvenile penitentiary, which is located up here in Richmond, RDC, Bon Air for young girls. I've had over 11 different foster homes.
Oh, wow.
Multiple detention center stays. I spent majority of my life homeless and on the run. So no, I always had encounters with wonderful social workers, some not so wonderful. But being a girl that's from the streets, no, I never envisioned myself to be where I am today.
Wow.
And most people counted me out.
You just said such a big mouthful, such a big statement just now. So I'm assuming that going through a lot of that, and wanting to be better with some situations, seeing things, you want things to be a little bit better, so that kind of like guided you in that field?
Absolutely, yes, without a shadow of a doubt.
Wow, 11 years old. So how do you feel about foster care and coming out of the system at the age that you did come out of? Did you ever think that you would get out earlier?
So absolutely not, because there was no one that was willing to adopt me. But in addition to that, my behavioral needs were so significant due to the level of trauma that I had experienced. Stabilization was just not something that really worked in my favor. So I took advantage of being able to stay in the system until I was 21 years old so that I could reap all the benefits.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very smart, not sure, going back home. May I ask what some of the trauma was?
Absolutely. So a lot of my trauma was, so first and foremost, both of my parents were substance abusers, with their drug of choice being crack cocaine. My mother sold me to men at a very young age. She was physically abusive to me and my sister. And I also was sexually abused by my uncle at a very young age as well.
Wow, that's a lot to, even envision and look at you so beautiful just sitting here, and you don't even look like you've been through those things.
Yeah.
I would never be able to tell, you know. So once you aged out of the system, what happened next?
So basically, which is, I don't want to jump too far ahead, which is basically how I birthed Girl, I Got You. So when I aged out of foster care, there was
That
no
young?
more. No, not that young, but later on in life.
Okay.
Essentially, when I aged out of foster care, I didn't have a permanent home. I didn't have a lot of skills. I lacked in a lot of areas because I was never taught. So I struggled, but I always was resilient. And so even though I didn't know I would be where I am today, I knew what did not kill me would always make me stronger.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So, tell me, like, what made you decide to, like, when did you decide to just go? Like, did somebody open the door for you? How did you get in school? Like, there had to be something to get you to start going.
So
I mean, you have a lot of letters behind your name. So you had to do some schooling.
Yeah, I did a lot of schooling. So, so I got my GED when I was 17. And I really struggled with math. And I met this principal who became my mother. She was a principal at James Blair Middle School, located in Winsburg, Virginia, and she took a liking to me. And so what had happened, and I'm giving you the skinny end, right, because we could never get all this in. So she was my middle school principal, and she was hired as a principal in Florida. So at the time, she was never a foster mother, but it was something about me that she took a liking to. And so at the time—
She knew you was in the foster care system already?
She definitely knew I was in the foster care system, yes. I lived in her office because I was always in trouble and I was always fighting. And so when she went to Florida, I had got locked up and I was sentenced to 18 months in state for assaulting multiple police officers in the courthouse.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Girl.
I was a gangster girl.
Ooh,
So when I got locked up, basically one day my probation officer, and she always kept in touch with me. She used to always send me poems by Maya Angelou. The first poem that I ever learned was Phenomenal Woman, and she sent that to me. And so my probation officer and social worker came to visit me one day like, listen, we can cut your stay short, but you cannot return to the state of Virginia. So your options are you do your time, and then when your time is up, we try to find you a placement, which will more than likely be in another group home, because no one was going to take me. And so, or go to Florida, because Gwendolyn Regale has written the state of Virginia requesting that you be allowed to come to Florida to live with her. And so at that time, I was shackled up.
That's like amazing for her to even want to.
Yes.
Wow.
It shifted the trajectory of my entire life.
I mean, like for someone to see you.
Yes.
Because, you know, getting in trouble a lot and always fighting, you know, that's a way to pull back from somebody to say, you know, that's just too much.
Yes.
It's just too much. But that's amazing.
Yes. It shifted the entire trajectory of my life. So handcuffed, they transported me from Bon Air Juvenile Correctional Facility to the airport in Richmond. And I transitioned to Florida. And from there is where she really instilled in me that she was going to love me through my pain and never let go, no matter what I did. So she wasn't going to abandon me or call the social workers to say she has to go because I was trying to commit suicide or I was running away. She understood my brokenness and she healed my brokenness. And she always told me, you're going to go from your GED to your PhD. And it spoke life into me.
Wow. So it just took somebody just to really care enough.
Just one person.
So let me go back a little bit. When you were going through the whole juvenile system and things of that nature, and you kept going back, you kept going back, do you think that it was a direct effect of growing up in such a hard household, you know, being in a hard household? Like, I know people who keep going back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why don't you try to fix it? Like, won't you go to school? Like, you know, you're older, you could go to school and try to change your, you know, situation around, but some people just seems like they just keep going back.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? What is that you're not afraid of the system or something? Or is it a safe place? Or is it better than just being on the street? Like, what is that about?
So it's a combination of things. One could say it's a safe place in terms of, you know, you're going to get a shower and you know you're going to get some food. A lot of us that come from where I come from, we don't know where our next shower is going to be. We don't know where our next meal is going to be. And the streets is all we know. So when you are never given an opportunity, if I never transitioned to Florida, and not a lot of people, my sister, we're night and day, same mother, same father, but she was never awarded the same opportunities as I was awarded. So therefore, a lot of people, when we transition from jail or juvenile, where do we go? We return back to the same broken system that we came from, and our environment is familiar. So we're never exposed to the unfamiliar. So we go back to what we know.
So it's all about what you know.
It's what you know.
So when someone's trying to tell you something, and if it doesn't affect you or like it hit you the way that it should hit you, or you can't see past your situation, it's just like you just keep going back through the cycle.
It's called trauma. Yeah. That's how trauma impacts you. Trauma will break you.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, yeah.
And it will destroy you if you allow it.
Yeah. Well, I see that you didn't allow it to destroy you. I mean, you saying both of your parents were on drugs.
Yes.
And that in itself is one thing when you have one parent, but you have another loving parent at home that's trying to manage both lifestyles, you know, trying to give you a healthy lifestyle and trying to be in this relationship that's probably not good, but just to like have both parents out there like that, that's a lot. That's definitely a lot. Mm-hmm. So you went to college after you went to Florida?
I did.
In Florida? Did you
so
go to
no.
college?
So essentially what happened, I transitioned. I was kind of back and forth once I got off probation. And I really wanted to come back to Virginia because I wanted to prove to people that I could make it where I was from.
So what age did you leave your new mom?
So I left Mama Regale, not technically leaving, but transitioned back to Virginia probably when I was about maybe 17, 18 years old. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so did you go to college from there, or you stayed out for a little while?
No, I went straight to college. So I started off at community college because no one accepted me because I had my GED. So it was really hard for me to get into a 4-year university. And I still struggled academically. Like I really, really struggled. So I started off at community college, and then some of her family that were influencers knew that I had to get out of my hometown because I had went back to the streets. I was still going to school, but I was back in the streets.
Wait, at 18 after you left Mama?
Oh, yes, I was.
And we'll be right back after this commercial break. So after you left Mama,
yes,
you came back to Virginia.
I did.
You wanted to prove a point to everybody that you can do it.
Yes.
And then you went back to the streets.
Definitely.
And in school at the same time.
Definitely.
So was you keeping those grades up?
So I definitely was keeping my grades up to the best of my ability, but I knew that if I did not get out of Williamsburg, which is where I am originally from, I was going to end up dead or in jail.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so did you finished college, right? You finished?
So I finished a semester at community college, and then my uncle, who was Mama Regale's brother, he worked his magic, and they were able to get me in a college called St. Paul's College up in Lawrenceville, Virginia. And they packed me up and shipped me away.
So you had somebody else who cared enough about you and saw you had a future.
Yes.
It was like, girl, you need to get yourself together.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So now you finished school. Mm-hmm. You actually finished school now with your first degree?
I did, and then I was thirsty for more. Yeah, I wanted to go all the way.
Okay, so now that you finished college, is this where the book came into play? Your first child came into play while you was in school? Because I know you said you had one child. Well, I read your book.
Yes.
You know, so I'm picking up off the second child.
Okay.
But I'm trying to go back to the first child.
Yes.
The first child, you was in school when you had your baby after college?
Honey, I got pregnant on graduation night.
Oh, college? Or
yes, I did, college. Yes, for my undergrad. Yes, I did. Sure did.
She said, sure did.
Yes.
Oh, I read those lists of things about your personality.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So how did that feel? Like, did you feel like, oh my God, like, oh, I just graduated? Like, how did you feel?
It felt motivating. I mean, it was still hard to get a job, and then I'm pregnant, so I now had this child. But I was committed that at that very moment, she was going to be everything that I needed her to be in order to break every generational curse, because they were not allowed to have my baby.
Hey, that's what's up. That's
Yeah.
what's up. All right. So, after you had this baby now you're working, you're out of school, everything is going good. Are you in your field that you're in?
I was in my field, in the field of social work, but I was struggling. I was a new mom. Her father was still in college. He was not a citizen over here. And we were struggling, and we were determined we were not going to raise our child on welfare. So we were doing the best that we could. And then eventually I got thirsty for more, so I went back to school for my master's.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when I went to school when I got my master's in social work.
Okay. All right. So you said that because I want to make sure I get the fathers right.
Yes, honey.
Okay.
Yeah, get them right.
Yes, we're going to get it right because we're going to get into this book. We're going to get into this book. So, okay, the first father, he is from another country. The second father was from, I thought the second father.
He from another country too,
honey. Okay.
Them countries, they love me, girl. They love me. I love them too.
Hey, sound like my mama. No, let me stop. Ooh, I don't say
I love them too.
Okay, so the first father, you know,
Yes.
everything is going good. Y'all raising your baby, everything's good. What made you not marry?
You know how a lot of people try to migrate here? He was the opposite. He absolutely loved his home, which is St. Martin, and I love the islands, but I don't want to live there. And so we just made an executive decision that we were going to co-parent from him being there and me being here.
Oh, so he went back.
He definitely did.
Okay, got
Yes.
you. You was okay with that?
Initially, no, but I mean, that's how the story goes.
Okay.
And we co-parented excellent, and we raised a phenomenal daughter.
Excellent. How old is your daughter now?
She's 19.
Ooh,
yeah, finishing her first semester at Old Dominion University with straight A's, then making the dean's list.
Look at you. Yeah. You did that.
Yeah, I did.
You did that. Okay, so we moved on. Now we're out of college and we're going back for our master's degree.
Yep.
Is this when your book came into play? Is this when you wrote your book?
So not the second book, the one that you're referring to. So basically, after getting my master's degree, you know, I was working, climbing the ladder, he's in the book, got into an abusive relationship for the love of money.
That's the second daddy.
That is not the second dad.
Okay.
That's the one that basically, when I left the 757, which is what I was always familiar with, I heard the Holy Spirit say, one day go. And so I transitioned to Northern Virginia, which is where I live now, without a plan. I had a daughter, I had a little bit of cash, and I heard the Holy Spirit say go, and I went. And it shifted the trajectory of my life until I met Mr. Man, met another one.
Okay. You like that accent.
Met another one when I got to Northern Virginia, and my career was really climbing the ladder at the time. But going to Northern Virginia is when I realized, okay, now I need to step my game up and I need to get my license and become a licensed clinical social worker.
Okay, so that's when you got that done.
Yes,
All
I
right.
started working towards it, absolutely.
Okay, so you was working towards it. Now you're in this new relationship because we got to get into the relationship.
You trying too, aren't you?
We're going to get into it. You wrote it. You wrote it. You put it out there.
Yes, I did.
So if you wrote it, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, no shame in my game.
Okay, so now you met Daddy too, right? And, and everything is going good in the beginning and everything like that. You're going to school at the same time that you met him.
Working on my license.
Working on your license and everything. How do you stay focused and have such a relationship that just turned, sour a little bit?
You know, I think you turn your pain into purpose and you turn your pain into power. You have a choice. If my childhood couldn't break me, I don't really think there's anything in my adult life that can break me. It may knock me down. It may keep me down for a moment, but it's not gonna break me. So he tried to break me. He almost broke me. You read the book. I was gonna kill that man. But he didn't.
You're such a strong woman. I find that you're very strong. I find, reading the book, I found it very surprising. And I had to even ask a couple of questions just from others just to get an understanding of who you were, because of the fact that I saw you as a strong person, but at the same time, this happened. And I'm like, and excuse me if I'm saying it wrong. But I'm like, how did you allow this to keep happening?
Absolutely. So there's no wrong way of saying it when you really don't understand trauma.
I really don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of being who I am, right, as a therapist, as a clinician who help other women through their trauma, I know me. So growing up in foster care, I struggled with abandonment issues. Growing up being broke, never having, being made fun of because you didn't have the clothes and you didn't have the shoes and you didn't have the nice hair. My sister and I were always bullied. So I was attracted to men who had money, who could take care of me. And so what he introduced me to was an upscale life that I love. Also being a product of foster care, I struggled with, if you know anything about attachment disorders or attachment styles, I have an anxious attachment style, right? So a person who grew up in foster care who was never loved, never protected, never provided for, typically you look for that in a relationship. And so that's part of becoming whole, and that's what he was for me. But also, let's not forget about soul ties, right? So it was a soul tie, it was the love of money, and I felt like he was my provider and my protector, even though he was breaking me in the process or trying to break me.
Now, let me just kind of walk in a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, you in your book, you said, I gotta make sure you say the name of the book.
Sure.
But in your book, you said that you were preaching.
Yes. Oh.
Now, you said you was preaching.
Yep.
You was an MIT minister in training.
Yes.
And you was about to be ordained.
Yes.
And you still was living with this man and going through your pain.
Yes.
Of abuse.
Yes.
Going to school, have a child, like, just to even do that's strong. What made you, being that you were a minister in training and you are getting the knowledge and stuff, what was it inside of you that could not break that? Because you had a source, you had a family, to turn to at this point. And I understand church because I've been through the whole process thing. I can identify with some of the stuff that you talked about when it came to church. I definitely can identify.
Sure.
So I get that part. At the same time, there had to be someone there that you could talk to.
There was no one.
You didn't have a friend, or you didn't allow yourself to have a friend, or you just didn't want to keep it a secret. You didn't want to tell nobody. Like, do we look at that? Like, do we look at the fact, because sometimes I look back at myself and say, maybe if I did this, I always think that I'm right at the end, but still, maybe if I did this, I did that. So you just felt like you had no one. I mean, like, you're a minister in training, you had to be close to somebody.
So no, I think that I was always looked upon, even to this day, as this strong, anointed woman, because I am a minister, a woman of God who can bear all, right? And one thing about the church is a lot of people, especially women and men too, but we're gonna speak specifically to women. We live in bondage because we can't share our truth. That's why the book is called Cleaning Out My Closet, How the Truth Will Set You Free. Because I wanted to be honest about where I was to help another woman and prevent another woman. Listen, I'm not going to dress this up. I'm not going to come to church. I'm struggling with fornication. I love sex. I'm addicted to this. You can't really say that in church and think you ain't going to be condemned or think you're not going to be judged. So therefore, the purpose of the book was God set my soul free. And in order to be free, let me tell my story before you try to tell it, and then you might get it wrong. I want to make sure everybody got it right. Okay, get the story right. So I'm gonna tell you my truth with the hopes that in setting myself free, because that book freed me.
Yeah, I could tell.
What?
I could tell.
I mean, when
I
say,
promise you, I could tell. When I got to the part, I was like, this book was mostly for her.
Girl, when I say that book freed me, set my soul on fire to just be able to release.
Yeah, I could feel when you felt like.
Yeah, yeah, and I will never live another lie. Period.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I am who I am, and you can't share your brokenness with everyone.
Right.
But you do need a sister circle.
Right.
Where you can share your brokenness, because you will never get healed. And if you can't find a sister circle, be careful of who you identify as a sister circle. Get you a sister therapist.
I like that.
Like me.
I like that. I like that.
Plug.
I like it. So, all right. So we're in church. We're going through the motions.
Yeah.
We're preaching. We're going to school. We're
Yeah.
getting our masters. We got our baby.
Yep.
And at home, it's just full of hell.
Full of hell. Not always.
Not always. It was good days.
It was good days.
You was
It
there.
was good days.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So moving on from there. So in the book, it said that you decided to. When did you decide to leave the church and move out of town?
Yep.
Like, okay, how do we get to that part? I know how you got to that part, but
Yeah.
can you tell us how you got to that part? Like, okay, I'm out. I can't do it no more.
Sure.
I'm done.
So basically, leaving the 757, when I was in that one abusive relationship, and I was just tired of church, and tired of myself too. Let me not just blame it all on the church, because I was tired of me too.
Okay, but you just drop your title like that, and you're like, I'm out.
Not necessarily. My title went with me, but no one knew that I was Minister Angel, because I left appropriately. But no one knew in Northern Virginia that I was Minister Angel, so I got to let my hair down.
So you got your minister license in Williamsburg?
Yeah, in Newport News.
Newport
Absolutely.
News.
Yes.
Okay. And so you left that church after you got your license?
Shortly after, yes.
Okay. I know that had to be hard for the church. Like, she got her license.
It wasn't like that. It wasn't like it was the relationship really that made me leave the 7-5. That man was gonna kill me. Yeah.
Wow. So I watched this young lady on reality TV, Christian Rock, and she had grew up in a very abusive home, parents on drugs and alcohol, and her life story is playing out on reality TV right now, and she has a trauma bond with a guy that she's with, and she gets it. They fight. I mean, her whole body was bruised up, but she's fighting back. She's tough. She talked back and everything. So I'm assuming that she doesn't see it as abuse. Like, she's standing up for herself and stuff like that. How do you minister to someone to tell them, like, just because you standing up and fighting back, that it's still abuse? Like, it's still abuse when somebody is coming at you. Because it's like you got to muster up this courage. You could be really afraid of somebody, but you got to muster up this courage to act like, I'm not afraid and I'm going to fight you back. Or there's the type of person who just kind of sit there and just kind of go into a defense mode. How do you just tell that one person, like, either way, it's still abuse, whether you knuckling back or not? You know, what kind of advice would you tell somebody how to get out of a situation like that?
So I think it's about self-love. It's taking inventory of self-love, because I think a lot of times when we're in these relationships, especially when we're talking about unhealthy relationship, and we say, oh, he loves me, I love him, and you put up with certain things that you know you should technically walk away from, it's really a matter of taking inventory of, do you really love yourself? Because if you
So for
really
somebody
love
to
yourself,
leave, they have to do some self-discovery on themselves.
it's mandatory.
It's not no ripping of the...
It's mandatory. And especially when you have a traumatic childhood, relationships are already difficult to walk away from when you love someone, when your heart is involved, when lust is involved. But when you have a traumatic childhood and you struggle with attachment issues, you do form trauma bonds, and trauma bonds are extremely challenging to break because you need love. And no one ever taught you self-love.
Wow. So we done left the church,
Yeah.
the second one, and we went out of town based on the book. And is this when we went to Georgia?
Yeah, girl.
Tell me about Georgia, because you sound like you did not like Georgia.
I hated Georgia, and I was running. And so when I left Georgia, when I went to Georgia, I moved based upon emotions. And I didn't think he would care at the time that I was taking our son, because our relationship was just so tumultuous. And when I got to Georgia, I was there for maybe 1 week and I started getting sick. Yeah. And
that's when I put down the book for a couple
girl,
hours.
I started
need a minute.
I
need to
started
regroup.
getting sick, and at first I was like, okay, maybe it's because I moved expeditiously and I'm finally slowing down. Maybe because I didn't even look at the house that we were moving into.
Oh, you did it online or something? You just
So I got one of my girlfriends and a realtor to help me. I just knew I needed to go. I was in fight or flight mode.
Gotcha.
And so I left, and a week after being there.
Did you leave because of him?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I left because of him, but because I also had lost my job. I was a government employee, and a white lady accused me of bullying her and harassing her, and she was on the job for 6 months, and I was on the job for over 5 years.
It's because you had just a strong personality, and they can't handle the strong personality. Just because you talk strong, and they think
It's called
that it's
oppression.
something else.
It still exists today.
Yeah.
And so it was a combination of me losing my job, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you, Father. And also the relationship. And so I left, got to Georgia. I packed up and was gone within a matter of 30 days. Okay? Didn't have a job in Georgia, but had confidence with my skills and my abilities that I would get a job, not realizing that I would give it a job that would have me back in poverty. Moved to Georgia, got to Georgia 1 week, found out I was pregnant with a baby girl. I knew immediately it was gonna be a girl. Found out at the time I had an STD. And this was from the man that I trusted, at least in a sexual nature. I always felt like, okay, if he was cheating, he would at least protect himself, right? No, he didn't do that.
And see, this is why I had the issue with you.
Yeah,
in
go
your
on.
book.
Tell me about the issue, girl.
Because I don't understand. Like, how do you trust somebody like that?
Yeah.
One, they're abusing you physically. Two, they did have another relationship. Didn't they marry somebody after 2 weeks or something?
Absolutely, he did.
Yeah. So and then is this the first baby? After the first baby, I remember you writing that he didn't want to babysit or help take care of the baby or anything like that. Like, I don't understand, like, what made you trust him so much?
Well,
Like, you gotta know. Like, you gotta know deep down. You maybe don't want to know, but you gotta know.
so we're talking about lust, right? Lust and love. And I think two things with him and I. One, when we first started off, we always used protection. So to me, that was like, okay, he believes in using condoms. Most men, one thing to tell you a lot about a man and a woman, if I meet you and we're about to get down and you ain't trying to strap up, red flag. Right? So I felt like in our relationship at a minimum, and then one time I found condoms in his bag when he went to Vegas. So I was like, well, at least he was, protecting himself. So that's how I thought. Because even at the doctor's office, when I first found out I was pregnant, they were like, we want to check you for STD. I said, no, I'm good. That's one thing for sure. I said, you can HIV check me, but I don't need to be checked for STDs because I know I'm good. My best friend was with me. She was like, Angel, just rule out everything. I said, girl, he ain't gonna do that. I mean, he gonna strap up. Baby, he ain't strap up. And so here we are with our second child on the way. STD, I'm in Georgia, and he using his money to me. Because he was me when I was in Georgia financially.
Well, why you say that? Because of the court system?
Because of the courts.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you came back from Georgia
Came back.
to Virginia. Then you was right back in his bed?
Oh, no. Absolutely not. So when I came back to Virginia, there was never a him and I ever again.
Okay.
He wasn't even there for the birth of our baby girl.
That's the second baby.
That's our
By
second
him.
child. Yes.
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 Okay. So y'all never made up from there. He went and married for a second time, right?
He attempted to make up with me, but it was based upon ultimatums. And at the end of the day, if I never got the STD, see, God works in mysterious ways.
So that was the breaking point for you?
Hands down.
Hey.
Because he could have gave me something I could have never gotten rid of. He could have gave me HIV. He could have gave me herpes. He could have gave me syphilis. Thank God. And do you know how embarrassing it was to be a grown, full adult and you in a doctor's office and they come back and tell you, oh, Miss Bartlett, you have chlamydia? Excuse me?
Yeah.
Such an embarrassing moment for me. But grateful to God in heaven, I was able to get rid of it.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
he jeopardized my life.
All right.
We were done.
But you didn't think he was jeopardizing your life when he was hitting you?
So he never really, I want to make sure I don't minimize his behavior. He never really
Let me know
physically.
if it's too tough, okay?
Girl, I'm tough.
Okay.
I'm forward tough.
Right.
No, I'm forward tough. He never really physically abused me. He emotionally abused the hell out of me. He raped me emotionally. He raped me mentally. Physical abuse was never really an issue with us. It was the emotional abuse that literally raped me.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
and the financial abuse as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so we done left him.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you, Lord.
Let me just say this. Today we have 2 beautiful children and we co-parent exceptionally well.
That's great. That's
Yes,
growth.
we do.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, we done left him.
Yes, thank
now,
you. Bye, Charles.
Okay, so now we have our children. We're going on.
Yeah.
Now we done got our master's degree. So now you got your master's degree. Is that when you decided to write your book?
So no, so at this point, when I wrote this book, I was working on my license. And I had already started because, you know, as a therapist, writing to me is a sense of purging and an opportunity to really get free. So I had started writing the book. And as you can see, my goal in the book was to become a licensed clinical therapist by the time I was such and such age. And I accomplished every goal that I put in that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to get your PhD now.
Absolutely.
Are you like in the middle of it, the beginning?
I am in the middle of it. I took some time off just because of everything that I had going on in life, and I wasn't as focused as I needed to be. But I definitely plan on being Dr. Bartlett for sure.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
So are you planning to open up your own firm? Like, what is your future endeavors?
So I have my own practice.
Okay, you do
yes,
have your own practice.
I do have my own practice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a major accomplishment.
Thank you. I launched my practice called Let It Go Coaching and Counseling in the midst of the pandemic. And the main reason was because I was a frontline worker working in the emergency room, and they didn't care nothing about my children and nothing about COVID and nothing about anything else. And so I had to make some difficult decisions. And so I birthed Let It Go Coaching and Counseling to teach other women and men, listen, girl, you can let this thing go, period.
Okay. So your office is in Northern Virginia?
My office is in Northern Virginia.
Okay,
With the hopes to one day also have one in the 757 as well.
See, what's the difference? Like, Virginia's Virginia to me. I'm from New York.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Okay.
It's the distance, you know, it's a distance, and that's my hometown. So naturally, I want to give back to the same community that I broke.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So you have your own firm now.
I
You're
do.
working on your PhD. You
Yeah.
have beautiful children. Got 2 books out.
Yeah.
You have definitely done some amazing things, especially coming from a hard past like that.
Yeah.
I commend you. You're a very strong, beautiful woman.
Thank you.
You are going to be such a great help to people, and just even telling your story today to show, like, listen, I'm still standing here and I don't even look like what I've been through or my past or my youth or anything like that. That is amazing within itself.
Thank you.
And if you want to sit down and give any advice to any young girls out there going through anything, you could take out the opportunity to do that to this camera.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. So first and foremost, I will say that allow your pain to birth your promise. Allow your pain to never be in vain. There's 2 things that I like to tell people about trauma because that's what I specialize in, that's my heart, that's my passion, that's my calling. With trauma, you have an opportunity. You can say, I'm going to be a victim or I'm going to be a victor. You become the victim when you allow that trauma to continue to show up in your life and knock you down. It has already played its place in your life. So I want to encourage you and speak life into you. Let that go. When it comes to being a victor, that means that I'm going to allow my trauma to make me into the woman, into the man that God has called me to be. I am the therapist that I am today because of my trauma. My best teachable moments is my transparency. So take inventory of your life, sis. Take inventory of your life, bro. And I want to encourage you to shift the trajectory of your life. And tell that trauma, child, you got to go. You've played enough place in my life, so deuces.
I love it. I love it. So, Angel, let the audience know how that they can reach you and become one of your clients if they need a therapist.
Absolutely. So 2 ways. My nonprofit, if there's a young lady that is transitioning out of foster care, or a mother that is transitioning from incarceration and who would benefit from reunification efforts, you can reach out to our nonprofit agency, which is called Girl I Got You Incorporated. And if you Google Girl I Got You Incorporated, our website will come up. If you are looking for individual therapy, marriage therapy, couples counseling, and need someone to walk you through your journey of trauma, you can reach me at angelbspeaks.com, and I would love to connect with you and just hold your hand and help you through your transitions in your journey.
Thank you, Angel.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm
you.
so grateful that you was able to come all the way out here to talk to me.
Likewise.
I know it was kind of a little tough or
It was
whatever to
good.
go through the little journey again, because I know you're like, I done did this already.
Yeah, no,
but
it was good.
I thank you for taking out the time and was able to go through it. And I know that this testimony right here alone in itself is going to be so helpful to someone. You know, it's going to reach that person or those people, you know, that it needs to reach. And that's the whole part about ministry, even the show, for whatever who it needs to be for is for. And it's not by mistake that you are here today. I'm glad I got an opportunity to read your book, to get to know you a little bit more. I see you as a very strong individual. Just keep on going with your journey and keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Keep in touch with the Sabrina Marie Show.
Yes.
Well, I know I'm going to see you again. I feel like I'm going to see you again. I feel like I'm going to see we're going to connect in some kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guys, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to subscribe to the channel, The Sabrina Marie Show on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button. Hit the like button and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time there's a new show. And guys, as you go on with your journey today, remember, never let them see you sweat.
Amen.